Well, all right. Let's talk about accessible resources then. Um, so, on the virtual side of things, you will have a good bit of resources, some PDFs, and a couple of websites that I'm going to include. So do make sure and take a look at those, and then also, of course, you'll have the quiz and the reflection question to respond to get your credit for attending virtually. So the objectives for today, we'll first talk about just kind of what is accessibility and why does it matter. Why is it important to use accessible documents in online courses? We will talk about what it means for a document to be accessible. Then we'll look at, specifically, we'll spend most of our time in Word and PowerPoint, because I feel like that's where the majority of your resources are probably created, is in Word and PowerPoint. Even if you do end up with a PDF, you probably start, in Word, making it there. And then we'll look at how to basically, it says create accessible Panopto videos, but that's just really adding automatic captions. Because that's about the only thing we can do to our videos to make them more accessible, is to caption them. So we'll look at how to do that. So I pulled this definition for accessibility from EduCause, just a website that I found, and this is the same definition that's used in the actual legislation for Section 504, civil rights, wherever you find this in legislation. So it means accessible means a person with a disability is afforded the opportunity to acquire the same information, engage in the same interactions, and enjoy the same services as a person without a disability in an equally effective and equally integrated manner with substantially equivalent ease of use. So basically we want them to be able to do exactly the same things, have exactly the same learning experience, and go through that learning experience with the same amount of ease as a person who is fully able-bodied would be able to. And that, depending on what the learning experience is, that kind of dictates what we're going to have to do to our resources to make them accessible. So most of the time people just kind of focus in on the vision and the hearing part, in terms of why we need to make things accessible, and both of those are definitely factors that need to be considered. So when you're talking about visual impairments, then a student may not be able to tell one color from another. They may need enlarged text. They may need to use a screen reader, which, if you're not familiar with screen readers, they are software that takes digital text and converts it to synthesized narration. So whatever's on the screen is read aloud to the student that has the vision impairment. And we'll talk more about screen readers kind of as we go along. For hearing impairments, obviously we're going to need, that's where your closed captioning comes in for our students that are hearing impaired. But then where people kind of forget about accessibility is, students that just have cognitive disabilities. Maybe they have some sort of learning disorder. When you take into account some of the things we're going to look at with these Word documents, that just helps to organize your resources better. You can improve the learning experience for students that have learning disabilities that maybe don't have visual and hearing impairments, but they just have a harder time understanding concepts maybe through text alone. So when we include images, that helps them to better understand. And then students that have motor, what am I looking for? Motor skills, where you use your hands. So maybe they're not able to use a mouse as easily, so they have to use a keyboard or some other kind of assistive technology. And that kind of goes back to the screen reader thing as well. It's kind of the same concept there. So how do they navigate what's on the screen without being able to use a mouse in their fingers, like somebody who is able to use that efficiently is able to do? So these reasons, and then if you are going through the Quality Matter certification, or if you plan on going through the Quality Matters certification process in the future, we now have an essential standard, which means that this standard has to be met for your course to be certified. That says that all of these things have to happen, right? We have to have accessible resources. We have to have closed captioning and all of these things that we're going to talk about moving forward. That standard before was there, but it was not an essential standard, meaning that you could meet enough of the other standards and still get certified. But now that they've made this an essential standard, if you don't meet this one standard, but you meet all the other ones, then your course is not certified. So that's also a reason for us, specifically those that are going through Quality Matters, that we need to be able to create accessible resources. This is just a video that I included in the PowerPoint that I will include in the resources in the Moodle course. We're not going to take the time to watch it during the presentation, but it just shows you a few different people using a few different devices, and kind of gives you a better idea of, you know, why we really need to be creating these accessible documents. All right, so some quick tips, and we'll go through each of these kind of one at a time. There is an accessibility checker in Word, PowerPoint, and PDF. So there is a tool that you can just click on the accessibility checker, and it will scan your entire document or presentation, and it will tell you what is wrong with it and what needs to be fixed and how to fix it. Now, it's not going to catch every little thing, but it will catch most of it. I've created some kind of sample documents that I knew were not accessible and ran it through this accessibility checker, and it's never missed anything in any of those. So I wouldn't count on it to be 100% accurate all the time, but it's a very, very helpful tool. So we'll look at that. Using styles and templates is also a good way to kind of work your way into an accessible document instead of trying to go back and edit something that you've already made. So if you start off with a template that is an accessible template, then you kind of know that as you create this resource, you're already heading in the right direction. Using headings and subheadings is another thing that we're going to look at. This specifically helps those students that use the screen readers be able to quickly navigate between the topics in a document. This is also one of those areas where, you know, students that have learning disabilities can benefit from accessible resources. Just by, you know, if I'm going to use headings and subheadings, then I have to organize the content in my mind in such a way that I can have headings and subheadings. So my content is now organized better, which helps, you know, some of those students that maybe have a harder time grasping information. Alternative text needs to be used for any images that are in your documents or your presentations. So alternative text is just text that we use to describe an image on the screen. So if I have a visual impairment and I can't see this, the alternative text is the only way that I have to comprehend what's on the page. Use meaningful hyperlinks, so don't use click here. That's kind of a cardinal sin for using hyperlinks. You never want to just use click here for this, because with a screen reader, when a person is using it and they're tabbing through the different links, if all of the hyperlinks say the same thing, then they have no idea what the hyperlink is for, or where they're going, or what the context of that hyperlink is. And so we'll kind of talk a little bit more how to actually use meaningful hyperlinks as we look at Word and PowerPoint. And then don't allow color to be the only way that you convey meaning. So, you know, if you want to make something red, also make it red and bold and italicized, so that, you know, if a person if a person is colorblind and can't perceive color, then they're not missing out on the fact that this particular word has emphasis placed on it. And then also be aware of, your use of background colors against fonts. You want to have a good contrast. Really kind of the best thing is black on white. That's always going to be a good contrast, and it's always going to be easy for people to read black on white or white on black, whichever way you want to do it. You just want to stay away from bright colors, and you don't want to use like a dark blue background with a light blue font. You want to have a better contrast than that. All right, so that's all of the presentation portion. So now let's get into actually what we can do in Microsoft Word. All right, so this is a document that I went on the Northwest Shoals Community College webpage and just pulled a bunch of information and pasted it into a Word document, and intentionally made it a non-accessible document. So we'll go through and kind of fix all of this stuff as we go. Before we get into that, though, I want to look at, I mentioned some templates. So if you'll go to File and then New, you have this little search bar up here where you can search for templates. Now it's going to pull up a bunch of templates, but we want specifically accessible templates. Well, that didn't work. Let me see. Accessible sampler, I think, was the one that I found before. Yeah. So this let it download. There we go. This one document has lots of different accessible templates in it. So you can see they're divided into categories. You've got some business templates. You've got some birthday cards, labels, and then some information about how to find other accessible templates. So there's lots of templates out there for you to use that are already accessible going in, to where you don't have to worry about using headings and styles and that type thing. So take advantage of those if you want. Just wanted to make you aware that there are accessible templates out there. All right, so the accessibility checker. What I would do is to put it on my quick access tab up here. So I'll show you where it is, and then I'll show you how to add it up here where you don't have to go and find it every time. So to get to the accessibility checker, we go to File, then we go to Check for Issues. You've got a little pull down menu here. Okay, and then we can do Check Accessibility. That is the accessibility checker. Okay, when you see this little icon here, this little page with the little circle in the bottom right hand corner, that's the accessibility checker. Okay, I'm not going to click on it now because I'm going to show you another way to find it and put it right up here where you can have it quickly. You should have a little search bar right here up with all these little tabs. At the very right of your tabs says tell me what you want to do. So I'm going to type in the search bar accessibility, and it'll bring up my accessibility checker. I'm going to right click on it, and then I'm going to add it to my quick access toolbar. So now whenever I want to run the accessibility checker, it's right there. All I have to do is come up here and click on it. Okay, so you see as soon as I click on it, I get this little column over here on the right hand side of my screen that's got all these different errors that I need to attend to. Okay, so we'll just go through them kind of one at a time. I've got, well, first let's look at my hyperlinks down here. Okay, I've got errors and then I've got warnings. You kind of need to look at them the same way. Microsoft Word differentiates between the two, but if we want our Word documents to be accessible, then we need to address both the errors and the warnings. So the first thing I want to do is to look at my unclear hyperlink text. So if I click on this, it should take me to the part in my document where the issue is, right? So I click on the hyperlink and it takes me to the actual hyperlink that's a problem. So in the context of this document, I've got a list of all these programs, and then I'm going to go look at a list of the online programs, and I've got a full-time plan of study, a part-time plan of study. So if I'm using a screen reader, if I'm using the part of my screen reader that allows me to tab through hyperlinks, what the screen reader is going to read off here is https://www.nwscc.edu/cont, and it's going to read that entire hyperlink out. And that's, you know, a very robotic voice, the synthesized voice that's reading that, and it's not going to make very much sense, and the student's going to have no idea where this hyperlink goes. So what we can do is, instead of leaving this entire hyperlink, we will cut that text and then highlight the full-time plan of study. We're going to put the hyperlink within that. Okay, so I'll just highlight that, click on hyperlink, and then tell it where to go. This is the text that's going to be displayed in my Word document, and then this is the hyperlink that it's going to take me to when I click on it. And then we can do the same thing with our part-time plan of study. Take this big, ugly, nasty hyperlink and cut it. Then highlight the part-time plan of study, add a hyperlink, and put the address back in. Okay, so now as the student tabs through, instead of seeing http:// whatever, they will know that there's a link under online programs for a full-time plan of study. Okay, so they have a little bit more context about what's going on, and they know where they're headed when they click on this link, is to a plan of study for a full-time student. Right, let's look at, we've got some missing alt text, so we'll look at that next. If you look up online, you know, how to use alternative text, one of the big things that you'll see is you want to describe both the content and the function of the image. Sometimes the image may not really have a function, right? In this particular case, you know, I've included this Northwest Shoals logo, but it really doesn't serve a function, right? The document, the resource would be no less effective or efficient without this image in it. So in this case, you have two choices really. You can either add alternative text and just say, excuse me, Northwest Shoals Community College logo, or you can do what's called a null alternative text, which when the screen reader reads it, it will read, okay, there's an image here, but it's not serving a function, so I'm just going to skip over it and I'm not going to read it at all. Okay, so we'll look at how to do both. To add alternative text to a picture in Word, you'll right-click on the picture, then go down to Format. Then that pulls up a little pane here. You'll click on Layout and Properties, and then there's your alt text. You can give it a title if you want, but when and if you convert this to a PDF document, the title is not going to go with it. The description will. So there's really no reason to use the title, honestly. Whatever you're going to put in the title, you could use as a caption, maybe, or you could just add it to the description. But just know that if your plan is to create an accessible Word document and then convert it to a PDF so that I know I have an accessible PDF, the title is not going to go with your alt text. So you'll be frustrated if that's your goal. So we'll put it in description. We can either just say Northwest Shoals Community College logo, right? So when I do this, it should yeah, the picture 2 has already went away up there. Okay, so as I make these fixes, it will just automatically kind of disappear from my accessibility checker. So we could either name it that, or the null alternative text is just open quotation marks, close quotation marks. That's it. So if you have an image that serves no actual function and is purely just kind of decorative in your document, this is how you can kind of get past the alt text. You still have to use alt text, but you know, if there's a visually impaired student that is not going to see this image, that's not going to impact their comprehension of the information in the document. So it really serves no function. Let's look at these other pictures. So I fixed that one. Picture 1. We're under campuses, so we've got a picture of building 127 here with the fountain in front. Again, you know, does this picture really serve any function here? And that's kind of a judgment call on your part. You know, it's going to be your resources that you're creating, and so you need to think to yourself, if a visually impaired student is going through this document, do they need their screen reader to read them something about this image? If they don't, will it lessen their experience of engaging with this document? And we'll talk more about alternative text when we get to the PowerPoint section of the presentation. But for all of these pictures, I'm just going to do the null because, you know, they're nice to have, but I don't feel like they really serve any function. And without them, the document still kind of keeps its meaning. So that's alt text in Word documents. Okay, so you'll right click, format, and then layout and properties. Tables. There's a couple of things we need to look at with our tables. The first thing is what's called row headers. So the screen reader, if there's no row headers on the table, then the screen reader basically is not able to read the table at all because it doesn't know what the headers are for the table. So let's look at how to do that. We go to our table and we'll highlight the row that we want as our header, right? So we'll highlight this row and then go to, it's either design or layout. Okay, so highlight the top row that you want to be the header row. Then we'll click on layout, and then right over here we've got repeat header rows. So you click on that, and as you see right over here, my table went away. Well, actually it didn't. What else do I need to do? So I guess this is a good time to go down here and look at this. I added these row headers, and my table is still on the accessibility checker as an issue. So if I feel like I've done what I needed to do to fix it, and it doesn't, then I can look right down here. It tells me why I need to fix it, and then it tells me how to fix it. So alternative text. So I need alternative text for tables as well as the row headers. So here, we will right click again, and go to Table Properties, Alt Text. Okay, so for images, you'll right click and then go to Format. For tables, you will right click and then go to Table Properties. Then you'll have an Alt Text tab. Okay, and here again, we don't want to put anything in the title because it's not going to come along with us when we convert this to a PDF. And if it's a table, you probably need to be a bit more descriptive than you would for an image. So I would say for this one, you know, a table that displays unduplicated head count, full-time enrollment, full-time distance students, part-time distance students for fall 2017, 2018, and 2019 in so many words, however you want to say that. But you would definitely need to have some sort of alternative text there. And these, by the way, are numbers that I just made up. So these are not correct at all. Just wanted to throw that out there. All right, I'm just going to, again, do this open and close so hopefully my table will go away. Yeah, so now it's gone away from my accessibility checker report. All right, the next thing I have here is my chart. So the first thing I want to do with this is to add alt text to it. So images, charts, tables all need to have alternative text because these are non-text based information that students are not, with vision impairments, will not be able to comprehend. Okay, so we'll do right click and format chart area. We have that is not it. So let's try this again. I know it's a right click. Let's see, format chart. There we go. Instead of text options, it's again the layout and properties. So it is, we'll start over. Right click, make sure that you're right clicking not on the actual chart itself though, because you get different properties to change when you right click here versus right clicking over here. Okay, so we'll do right click, format chart area, layout and properties, and again there's my alt text. Okay, so I would say something like pie chart displaying categories of revenue for NWSCC. All right, so it's went away in my accessibility checker, but it's really not, this chart is really still not accessible because I'm using color as the primary means to convey meaning here, right? I can tell you that tuition is the biggest part of the pie and that gifts is the smallest part of the pie, but other than that, I don't really have any other information, right? So here we would want to look at my other options to display this data. Let's see, format data series or change. Can't remember which one it was that I found. No, it's not any of those. It's up here under design. So you don't have to right click, but just look at all these other options that you have for the pie chart that will give you some numbers like this one. Okay, so now that I have some numbers here, I'm not using color as the primary means of conveying information. So, that's kind of a small thing, but it is technically necessary to be an accessible document. All right, so we've got hyperlinks, alt text, tables. Now let's talk about using headings and subheadings. And really, this is kind of the biggest thing for people using screen readers, because without headings, the screen reader is just going to read the document from top to bottom, and that's the only way that this person is going to be able to read the document. So think about it in terms of, if you call somewhere and there's like a phone menu that has 9 options and you want option 9 and you have to listen to options 1 through 8 before you get to option 9, you can't just skip directly there. That's kind of how this document would be for a person that's reading it with the screen reader. Right? So let me zoom out here. So I've got a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 page document. If what I need is on page 8, then I have to let my screen reader read through all of this until it gets to 8. And I can't really navigate anything because I don't have headings and subheadings. And most of us, myself included, when I first started using Word, the reason I was using it was to type papers. And so whenever I would want to kind of format and organize my paper, what I would do was just highlight my stuff here. So if I want this to be bigger or smaller, then I'll just either go down or up. I can bold it, unbold it, all that kind of stuff. And that's fine. That's not how we want to change our font if we're trying to create an accessible document. So what we want to use is right over here, called our styles and headings. Have you ever used these, Todd? Are you familiar with them?
I have used them in Pages much more than I have Word, but I'm working on it.
Okay. It's actually pretty easy, and while I'm thinking about it, there is a guy on YouTube that has several videos, Scott Hanselman, and I'll include a link to his YouTube channel. He's got lots of stuff, but he's got this little, I think 6 or 7 videos on using Microsoft Office, and he's got one specifically on using styles, which is what we're looking at here. If you are a formatting nerd and you just like to be able to format things very precisely in the way that you want to, check his videos out. They're not very long, 8, 9, 10, 15 minutes, and he's really, really good. So again, I'll put the link to his channel underneath the video. So let's go back here. All right, so first thing I want to do here is decide kind of how this is going to be organized. So as I go through, I've got a heading there, heading there, heading there, subheading, subheading. There's a heading, some more subheading. So I really only have kind of two levels that I need to use. So I'm going to be using heading 1 and heading 2. And that's how the screen reader is going to read it. They'll start with heading 1 being the most important, and then 2, 3, 4, and so on. So you don't want to start with heading 3 and then move to heading 2. You want to go in order, how it would be logically. And then this is going to be my title. Okay, so I will highlight my title and then come up here and just click on title. Okay, so you see how it changed the font, the size, and everything. And if I just hover over this, I can get a preview of what it's going to look like when I change it. So I'll go ahead and change that. So now the screen reader, the first thing it's going to read is that, because it is designated as the title. Now after I change this to be categorized as a title, I can still come in here and play around with the font and make it bigger, make it smaller. I can change it to a different font type. I can left align it, right align it. Doesn't matter what I do. Now that I've categorized it as a title, it's going to be a title. Here I've got heading 1. I'll just go down through here and set all of these. That's heading 1. This is going to be a heading 2. Heading 2. Heading 1. And so you don't have to highlight all these. I'm just clicking on the same line that this is on. If I want to do several of them at once, I can highlight them all. All of those are going to be heading 2s. Whoop. That would be a heading 1. Heading 1. Heading 1. Heading 1. 1. All right. The other thing this does, once I get all my headings and subheadings, if you go to View and then go to Navigation pane, you can actually navigate throughout your document based on the headings and subheadings that you created. Right? So this is kind of the best way for you to understand what the screen reader is doing here. So once I set all these headings and subheadings, now if I'm using a screen reader, I can jump between all of these headings, right? And I can look at all of this stuff. I don't have to, if I want to, if I'm interested in the online programs, I don't have to listen to all of this until it gets to online programs. I can just tab through all these headings and subheadings and get to what I want to get to. You can also I forget where it's at, so I'll just type it up here. I forget where the table of contents is at in your menu, but that's the other thing that you can do once you've set these headings and subheadings. You can create a table of contents automatically. Let me go back because I don't want it right there. Go back up, and we're going to insert a blank page, and then we're going to do our table of contents. Okay, so it just automatically creates your table of contents for you, and it's going to have, your headings the way that you've got them in your document. And then if I go in and change anything, I can update the table at any point in time, right? So if I make some changes to my documents and add some different subheadings or delete anything, after I make some changes, I'll click Update Table, and then update entire table, and that will add my new headings and subheadings. The other thing a couple more things we want to look at with headings and styles. You may or may not like the kind of the default fonts that are associated with this. This is another thing that I like about using headings, is especially with a large document that's several pages, it makes it easier to make changes to your document, because what I can do is I can go to my heading 1 here and right click on it. Let's say I don't like this, right? I want to change what this looks like. So I'm going to go to heading 1 and right click and click on Modify. Okay, so let's say instead of Arial, I want this font. I don't want it to be bold. I want it to be italicized, and I want it to be a little bit bigger. Okay, so I can either do that only to this document, or if I know that that's what I like for my heading 1, I can set all new documents. So basically that's going to be your default heading 1. So every time after that you open up Word, heading 1 is going to be set to that font. Okay, and when I do that, not only does it change this, but everything that I had designated as heading 1 is now changed. Okay, versus if you don't have these set as headings and you decide, I don't really like this, I want to change all of my headings, you would have to go in here and highlight, change, pull this down, and you would have to change every one of those individually versus being able to change them all at once. You can also do the same thing. We'll do this with heading 2. Let's say I don't like heading 2, I want to change it. Okay, so I'll go down here to where my heading 2 is. Not right click. We'll decide what we want to do with it. Okay, so we don't like Arial, we like this Bell MT, we want to make it a little bit bigger, and then bold it but not italicize it. Okay, so I'm going to change this 1 and then come up here, right click, and click on Update Heading 2 to match what I did here. Okay, so that will change every heading 2 in this document. Just a different way to do the same thing. Lastly, you do have, let me zoom out a little bit. Where is this at? It's in design. There are lots of preset styles that you can kind of siphon through or cycle through here. So if you'll just kind of pay attention here, once you get things set as title and heading and all of that, you can kind of go through these and find one that maybe you like. And that's, you can customize these as well. I'm not going to take the time to go through and talk about all that, but there are some good ones. Some of them are not so great, but that's another option that you have once you get your document set as this is my title, this is my heading, this is my subheading. You can go through and kind of play with these and see if you can find one that you like. And then, if you like if you like one, but you want the headings to be a little bit bigger, then you can set that style and then go in and edit it after the fact as well. So let's see, did I get rid of all of my stuff over here? So now I have some warnings. It says my heading is too long, so we'll jump to that. I set these as headings, and it's saying, it's a little bit too long for a heading. Again, that'd be a judgment call on your part. Objects not in line, so I've got this set as tight instead of inline, because if I set it as inline, it looks like that, and I don't want it to look like that. Okay, so I want it to be able to move kind of however I want it to be set. But Word is always going to kind of yell at you if you don't have your images set as inline. Again, that's not really something that's going to be an issue with screen readers, so I wouldn't worry about that. Also, it does not like it when you use Enter to create spaces between things. So, like right here, for instance. Okay, let me set that back to what it was. Well, that's not a good. I'm trying to find somewhere. All right, right here. Let's say I don't like how this is split between two pages. All right, so a lot of times what people will do is just push Enter a couple times to get that to move down, and Word doesn't like it when you do that. There's other ways to go about doing that, but we won't look at that today. That's not something that I feel like you should worry about with accessibility issues. It's just going to tell you, hey, you've pushed Enter 5 times to create some space here. You've pushed Enter 5 times to create some space there. So that's not something you really need to worry about too much. All right, so questions on Word. Todd, you got anything? Anything's?
You have to work through.
Okay. So now let's go to just real quick. We'll look at PDF. So first of all, if you don't know how to save or convert a Word file to a PDF file, it's very simple. You just save it that way. So when I go to save this, I'll go to Save As. I'm just going to save this to the desktop. Okay, but under the file type, instead of saving it as a Word document, I'll just save it as a PDF, and that converts it to PDF. So you don't need any kind of special software or anything like that. You just save it as a different file type. All right, and this is a different version of Adobe than what I have. Actually, Adobe wasn't even on this computer when I came in here, so we might not be able to look. Yeah, this doesn't have, this is just the reader version, so doesn't have the tools and stuff in it that I need. So for Adobe, really, if you don't have to worry about a PDF file being accessible. If you created an accessible Word document and then convert it to PDF, it's going to be a accessible PDF. There is an accessibility checker in Adobe. It's under Tools, and it's called Accessibility, I think. So you just go to Tools and then Accessibility, and there'll be an option there to run a check. The easiest way to determine if your document is accessible in PDF is to see if you can highlight text. Right? If you can highlight text like this, then it's an accessible PDF file. If you weren't able to highlight text, then what that would mean would be that this is an image, and so your screen reader is not going to be able to read anything because it's an image. The other way you can check is to do a Control F and do a search. Right? If you're able to search the document with Control F, then it's an accessible document. So those are just two kind of quick ways to check. But again, if you create an accessible Word document, save it as PDF, you're good to go. All right, let's look at PowerPoint. Let's get rid of all of this. All right, so the same thing applies to PowerPoint that does Word. Obviously, they're both Microsoft products. So to get to the accessibility checker in PowerPoint, we will go to File, check for issues, check accessibility, or again, you can go to your little search bar, type in accessibility, right-click, add to the quick access toolbar, and then you can run it from there quickly. All right, so I click there, and you see I've got several things going on here. Okay, I've got missing alt text for a lot of stuff. I've got missing titles for my slides on several slides, and then it's got some other things that it just kind of recommends me to look at. So I'm going to minimize most of this here. So this is a PowerPoint that is a Cengage Publisher PowerPoint. In general, your publisher-made PowerPoints are going to have similar accessibility reports, especially when they use lots of images, because they're not going in and adding alt text, as you can tell here with all of these under the alt text thing. Okay, we've got lots of images in this PowerPoint, and none of them have alternative text. So let's go through and look at a couple of them. Missing alt text. We'll go to well, I was going to go. Not sure why it's not giving me the same navigation as before. Usually it's got it broken down by slide. Oh, there we go. It's out there in parentheses. I just wasn't paying attention to it. So you've got what comes first here is it describes the image, and then out in parentheses is going to tell you what slide that image is on. So I'll go to slide 3. And as I click on these, you see this is changing from one to the next, right? So this object 16 refers to the image on the left. Object 17 refers to the image on the right. Object 5 is something in here that I can't really make out. Object 6 is, again, something small in here. It looks like an arrow of some sort. So again, this goes back to content and function of the image. So in the context of this presentation, right, what is the content here, and what is the function of this image? And this is one of the upsides that I see that come from just kind of dealing with accessibility issues, and specifically alternative text in general, is if I'm going through a presentation and I've got this many images that I've got to add alt text to, then I don't want this. That's tedious work to go through and add alt text to every single image in a presentation. So it at least makes me start to think to myself, what purpose is this image serving? Could I take this image out of this presentation and the presentation still retain its value, right? So a lot of times we have images in our presentations that could be taken out, right? So as you go through here and you look at this and you ask yourself, what is the function of this image? If you can't come up with a good instructional function for this image, then possibly take it out of your presentation altogether, right? If I am a visually impaired student, do I need this image or do I need a description of this image to help me understand this content? So it at least gets us kind of thinking about the design of our presentations and what images we're including and not including and what purposes they serve. So in this one, I would say probably both of these images, Object 16 and Object 17, we would want to do alt text for them. But then, see, if I move this over, you see I've got this stuff here. Okay, now that I don't need alternative text for, right? That's something that is pointing out something specific in this image. If it's something that I feel like needs to be pointed out, then I can add that in my alt text for this image, right? But I'm not going to make a description. I'm not going to add alt text for this arrow and say arrowhead or line of an arrow. So just keep in mind that not necessarily every single one of these is something that you're going to have to fix, right? So let's say I wanted to fix the Object 16 and 17. Same thing here that you would do in Word. You would right click on the image, go down to Format Picture, Layout and Properties, or Size and Properties, and then you've got your alt text. Okay, again, I would do everything in description. Now, as far as how you describe this, it's not necessary for you to say image of or picture of. The screen reader already knows it's an image, it's a picture. So it's just redundant for you to start off your description with image of. And in terms of how you describe it, that's going to be something for you to decide dependent upon what is the content and the function of this image. What is the purpose that you're including this image in your presentation, and that will kind of dictate how you describe it to a student that's unable to see it. So me looking at it, I would just describe it as a very, very large hole in the ground. But in terms of whatever is trying to be conveyed in this presentation, I'm sure that the instructor that created this would have a different way to describe that hole in the ground. That's what it is to me. It's a hole in the ground. But in the context of this biology course, it's probably a little bit more than that. So that's where we would add our alt text there. Let's look at a couple more of these slides. Which one I look at? 3. Let's look at 25. All right, so as I go through here, there's something else that I wanted to check also. So PowerPoint, especially these publisher-created PowerPoint presentations, there's lots of accessibility issues. One of them is going to be the order in which things are read off of the slide, right? So you see here I've got image, 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 a block of text, a block of text, a block of text, image, block of text. So all of this stuff has to be read off of this slide. And there has to be some sort of order set for the screen reader to know, do I read the alt text for this image first or that image first, or do I read this block of text or that block of text, or what's the order that I look at this? Let me see, how do we get back to reading order? We go to Home, then Arrange, and then Selection Pane. Okay, so there's a good chance you probably won't remember that, the way that you can find out how to get there, right, it's going to tell me to check the reading order. That's going to be one of the things it recommends to me. So I go to check reading order, how to fix. That's going to tell me how to get there. Switch to the Home tab, click Arrange, choose Selection pane. Okay, so I'll go to my Home tab, Arrange, Selection pane. So this little thing here gives me, we'll put that away. That gives me the order that these chunks are going to be read off of the slide. Now it's read from bottom to top, which is weird, but it does say that right down here. Otherwise, I would not have known it. It says, objects will be read back beginning with the bottom list item and ending with the top list item. So whatever's down here, that's what's going to be read first. Okay, so as I click on these, that's how I'm going to check the reading order. I'm going to click these and see what order is this going to be read in. So I'm going to have one image, then another image, then I'm going to go down, and then across. Okay, so is this the order that I want these images read in? Or maybe do I want the text read first and then the images described? That's something that you're going to have to decide for yourself. Another thing that's kind of quirky and frustrating about these publisher presentations, every one of them has this little thing right here on every single slide. And it's always going to be either the first or the last thing that's read on the slide by default. April actually contacted Cengage about that, and they told us that we can leave that on the first slide and then take it off all the other ones. That way the student's not having to sit there and listen to, you know, the copyright information read on every single slide. This one looks like it's just built into the actual PowerPoint template itself. So this is not going to be read. Right? The way that I know that is as I click on stuff over here, it never gets highlighted. So that's just built in to the actual PowerPoint template itself. But this, whatever this is, that's going to be read, and it looks like it's on most slides with images, so it's probably copyright information for the images. So this is how you change the reading order. Right? We just take something and drag it wherever we want it. And if I want, maybe I don't want something to be read. For instance, this, I don't want that to be read. That has no value to my instruction. I'll highlight it here and just hit delete, and it goes away. Okay, that is going to be your biggest two issues with PowerPoint, especially again these PowerPoints that are provided to you by the publishers, is alt text and reading order. Because you're not going to have alt text for any of your images, and from what I've seen with my experience looking at these, the reading order is usually pretty jacked up. So and you have to go into every single slide and check the reading order and possibly make changes to it. Let's see, what was the slide 31? Right, so this is, you know, I talked earlier about one thing that alt text kind of gives us an opportunity to do is to think about what's on a slide and does it really need to be there. So as I look at this particular slide, right, here's the reading order for it over here, which tells me I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. I've got 24 chunks of information on this slide. So, you know, perhaps I need to take this one slide and make it 2 slides. Perhaps I have a bit too much information on this one slide. You know, especially for somebody that's using a screen reader, this is going to be a lot of stuff for them to try and take in through a screen reader. But, you know, just going back to our traditional fully capable, able-bodied students, it's not going to be of any detriment to them to take this one slide and possibly create two with it. So just kind of use, if you're going to go through your publisher presentations and make them accessible, use that as an opportunity to kind of get rid of some, extra information that maybe you're not even covering at all, and maybe kind of, rearrange some of the designs on some of these slides to make it more accessible, not only for our disabled students, but for all of our other students as well. I think that's about it for PowerPoint. You're still going to need, if you have tables and charts in PowerPoint, the same things apply there. So alt text applies to images, charts, tables. And then for your tables, you're going to need row headers set as well, so that the screen reader knows where the row headers are. So let's real quick just look at Moodle and Panopto. So there's only one thing I want to show you in Moodle, which is you have built-in headings the same way that you have in Word. You have built-in headings in Moodle. So again, if I'm using a screen reader, right, and let's say I'm inside of a module, and none of the text here has been set as a heading, then again, my screen reader is just going to start reading from top to bottom, right? And so if what I need is down here, then I'm going to have to listen to all of this stuff be read until I get down there. So when you add your resources, no, I don't want to edit my topic. That's not what I want to edit. So this one, for example, it's just a label, and it's just text, right? That's all it is. If I enter this the way that it is and nothing else, then it's not set as a heading. So what I would suggest is for everything that you put in Moodle that needs to be a heading, then you've got your little pull-down menu here, large, medium, small headings, and then after you set it as a heading, you have additional options here to change the size of it. So your formatting options are a bit more limited within Moodle, but you can still fairly easily set these as headings to where your students can tab through your lesson much easier than if they weren't set as headings. So for example, on this one, right, as my student tab through here, this is set as heading, that's a heading, this, so all kind of the major things here, each one of these is set as a heading, and then these are not, right? So my student can tab through all of this stuff and get kind of to where they want to be a little bit quicker, okay? Right, so, and that's kind of built into most stuff, like SoftChalk, has pull down heading options as well, and the same thing kind of applies there as well. So in Panopto, to import your automatic captions, you would just go into your folders or find your videos, however you have them organized, and you see as I hover over, I get these options that pop up, right? So what I want to click on is Edit. And it's very easy to import the captions, but then what you have to do after that is kind of time consuming. So we go into Edit, and then there's just your little Captions tab over here. So you'll click on it. You have a pull-down menu that gives you two options. You can either upload, like if you had a Word document that had the entire thing transcribed already, you could upload that, or you can import them automatically, and Panopto has voice recognition software that it uses to create automatic captions. Now the issue here is voice recognition software is much less than perfect. If you speak quickly and maybe with a little bit of an accent that Panopto doesn't understand, or not clearly. You do a lot of what I do, which is uhs and ums and things of that nature, which all of us kind of tend to do during our presentations, right? It's just kind of human nature. Those things kind of trip up the voice recognition software. And then also, as you can see, as we're looking down here, there's nothing capitalized anywhere. There's no periods anywhere. There's no commas anywhere. There's no punctuation, no grammar. So yes, you can import these captions. They're not going to be, I'd say maybe, depending on how you speak and what the content is. For instance, if you're teaching biology and you're having to say words that are, 7 syllables long, it's not going to be close. It's probably going to take that one word and create 3 words out of it. But for a welcome video that's shorter and maybe a little bit more thought out ahead of time, where you can speak a little slower and there's less uhs and ums in there, that would maybe not take so long. But for this one, it's what, an hour? It's an hour long, and I would have to go through here.
Today is course alignment, part 2 of a 3-part series. The first part we talked about.
So it's pretty good thus far.
And also a little bit about the learner-centered syllabus.
Okay, so it takes 10 seconds till we get to a point where I need to make a change, right? So it's not Warner Sitter. So this was. So you just go in here, you click learner-centered syllabus. Make that change, and then you're done. And then you would have to just kind of keep going through and doing that all the way through the video. Personally, I would have to fix the punctuation and the grammar and stuff. If that doesn't matter to you, that would probably be a little bit quicker. But other than this, I mean, there's another tool that I use called Screencast-O-Matic. It has the same tool where you can use voice recognition software and it auto generates your captions, but still you have to go in and fix the grammar and punctuation and all of that. And again, it's not going to be perfect. So it's still time consuming. It's less time consuming than having to do the whole thing from scratch. Maybe for some of you that are faster typers than I, maybe it'd be better for you to just sit down and let the video play and kind of type as you go. But this is an option that you have. There's also, some companies out there that'll do it for you. It does get a little bit expensive. So, maybe another reason that we should be creating shorter lecture videos is it would take us less time to caption them. So that's about it for the day. For the virtual attendees, do make sure that you take the quiz and answer the reflection question. And hopefully you can have some time to take a look at some of the resources that are down below this video. Thanks, and I will see you next time.